update you on the situation on the ground. The eThekwini Mayor Mxolisi Kaunda confirming that several cemeteries across the country have been affected by the unbelievable amount of rain in KwaZulu-Natal. At least 45 people have died since the heavy downpours led to flash flooding. The death toll expected to rise as the provincial cooperative governance department predicts more rain in the days to come. Newsroom Africa's Ziyanda Ngcobo in Durban for us this afternoon. Ziyanda, good afternoon to you. The pictures that we've seen show such devastation. What have you seen today?
Good afternoon to you, Stephen. Well, I'm standing at the Ntuzuma Cemetery where the old section of the cemetery has been completely devastated. And, you know, the context here, Stephen, is that this old side of the cemetery has not, it's not the first time that it's befallen this fate. I'm going to step out of shot as I explained to you that in 1984, when Tropical Cyclone Demoina actually hit, it devastated this part of the cemetery, and it would seem that, you know, some 30-odd years later, the same has happened. And, you know, what actually brought us here was tweets and information coming in that these tombstones were so devastated to the point that there were skulls and, you know, remains floating down this area. Now, we're obviously not going to show you that, but I can tell you from the information that I've gotten is that back in 1984, this is a scene that had actually befallen this particular area. And there's also another sinkhole as well here in Ntuzuma that we'll take you to shortly after this, Stephen, that has been completely devastated. But you can see what has taken place as a result of those torrential rains, that the fencing for the entrance, along the entrance and the fencing of this particular cemetery have been completely damaged. And I can tell you that we've just entering here, we've seen several cars entering the cemetery, and you can imagine the families who've tried to come and check whether or not their loved ones' tombstones have been damaged as a result of those torrential rains. This is not the only cemetery that's been affected, according to what the eThekwini Mayor has told us this afternoon. And certainly, as they also continue to assess the damage, it has the remnants of what took place in 2019, Stephen, where infrastructure, the roads, and as well as the homes of many continue to be damaged, and we continue to count the cost of what the 5-day downpours are going to cost this particular city and other parts of the province, Stephen.
And Ziyanda, I mean, the stories that people must be telling, the difficulties that they're now facing, the sheer shock of what's happened.
You know, Stephen, there's sheer shock, but you know what? For me is quite alarming is that we've been here before. I remember distinctly doing something similar to this in 2019, where the damage there was around 1.1 million, and the discussions thereof were about the drainage systems, how government is going to catch up with the effects of climate change. President Cyril Ramaphosa even came here. Funds were released by the Treasury, and yet again we find ourselves in this situation where the similar areas as well that were damaged in 2019 are again being damaged again in 2022. So questions are being raised about what exactly was done with those disaster relief funds to ensure that the blockage systems in the city and other areas of KwaZulu-Natal, you know, the upgrading of the infrastructure to keep up with the effects of climate change. Where are we in terms of, you know, those plans, if there are any? And these are the questions that are now coming to the top of mind as those families continue to count the costs. Roads that have been damaged. That sinkhole in Ntuzuma is not an old road, actually, so it's not necessarily old infrastructure. So is the quality of the roads that are now being built able to withstand, you know, the torrential rains? The KwaZulu-Natal Cooperative Governance Department saying just in the last 24 hours, 300 millimeters of rainfall, you know, fell fell in this area of eThekwini alone. I'm not talking about the other parts of the province, Ilembe, that's been affected, as well as other parts of the south coast. So this is something that we're also going to touch base with in terms of the officials as they continue to also assess the damage, and as families try to figure out how they're going to, restart their lives again. We know that the KZN Premier is going to have a special cabinet meeting this afternoon, and thereafter he'll brief the media, where I think I can safely anticipate that the likelihood is that KwaZulu-Natal once again will be declared a disaster area.
Ziyande Ngobo, thank you very much indeed. Really appreciate that update there from that situation in KwaZulu-Natal.